But she was in such denial. She said, "You can change. You can change." She voted for McCain, and she was a big Prop 8 supporter. And I was trying to explain to her, the way you vote really does affect my rights and who I am as a human being, as your son who wants to live a fulfilled life. And she said, "Well, you can change. You can change. You can pray to God and you can be straight." She said, "As long as I pray to God enough that I could just wake up in the morning and, be straight, apparently." And I said, "No, I've tried. I prayed all the time at all of the retreats, all the revival services." And she said, "But you can pray harder. Yes, you can, like Obama. Yes, you can. You can change." And in one way, I wanted to laugh and just say, "Well, you voted for McCain, and now all of a sudden you're toting Obama slogans." But another way, I realized that it was so difficult to just hear that from her, that I can just change and I haven't been praying hard enough. And I wanted to commit suicide. And many times when I was growing up, I didn't know if I'd be able to live and tell my parents and know that I am a worthwhile human being. When I came back home, it got so difficult during that 6-month period when I was coming out to them that I wanted to put a bullet into my West Point pistol and end my life. One Sunday I was wanting to do that, and I thought that there would be a hunting store that was open, in Orange County. Before I did that, I went to a church for gay people, and I said, "Okay, well, I'll try," because I was raised so religiously. I said, "Well, maybe I'll hear what they have to say." It was the first time I went to a Metropolitan Community Church, and they were saying that you are a child of God, you were created gay, you were born this way, and there is nothing that can separate you from God's promise. And that's the first time I heard any of that put that way. I've been back and forth, atheism, agnosticism, humanism, born-again Christianity, back and forth. Because of this journey, I felt that I had to pick one or the other. Either you live honestly as a gay person, or you are a Christian, but you cannot do both. And that was the first time that I heard that message, and it had a very powerful impact on me. As much as I felt that I'm not an emotional person, I don't really fall prey to some of those taglines, and I'm not just going to, say that I'm converted just because I hear "just as I am" on the piano. I didn't feel that I was like that, but it had such a gripping, powerful force on me to say, "You are a worthwhile human being." And I felt that at that moment, I was glad that I didn't find a hunting store, and to hear that kind of a message reminded me that whatever your religion, I think most Americans understand the story of Jesus and what that means to a lot of people in our psyche. When I read the verses of Jesus now, I see that he was a practitioner of civil disobedience of the highest regard and highest caliber. And for him, at a time when the religious establishment and the political power elites were telling him that he did not have a right to say the things that he was saying about himself, or say the truths that he knew, or even say things like, "I'm just fulfilling scripture. I'm just trying to manifest what promises you have given to your own people through your own written words and your own written laws and legislation. I'm just trying to say, why don't you make that true?" And he was not treated very well by his government, as far as I remember, or the religious establishment, as far as I remember. So I'm not comparing myself to Jesus in any way, but I am saying that we can learn a lot from not only Jesus, but from Gandhi and from Dr. King and from the American Revolution and those military officers who were chastised for some of their tactics in bringing about real change. Those who stood up, and the reason why we have America is because of people like that.
Did the other people in your unit in Iraq know that you were gay?
In Iraq, no. I was very closeted throughout my entire service on active duty. I told one person as I was leaving active duty and joining the National Guard. The bottom line is, it doesn't scare soldiers. We go to drill and training. While I was serving in the National Guard, we go to infantry training. I'm in the bays, in the barracks, in the close quarters, in the forced intimacy. 3 feet away from me is another bunk. I'm sleeping right next to this straight guy, this infantryman. We're in the showers. We are naked in the shower. And if that's the fear, as you're hearing the Pentagon say that we need to have shower curtains or separate facilities, sounds a lot like segregation or separate but equal mentalities at least. I don't think people realize how much that undercuts and insults our straight soldiers to assume that they are so scared and so weak and so unable, so unprofessional to deal with diverse people after coming back from war, that they would quit because of gay people in their unit. I think it's an insult to our soldiers to assume that they would be quitters. And for anybody to assume that, and then to go on a slippery slope argument and say that we need the draft because everybody's going to quit, I don't know of any more treacherous of a talking point than to say, my assumption is that soldiers are quitters. I think it's an absolute slap in the face, not to me as a gay soldier, but to the straight soldiers, and I think those people who espouse that ideology should be ashamed.
Talk about the event President Obama had that you weren't invited to.
I wasn't invited to a lot of events that President Obama's had over the tenure of his term in his office, but I wonder sometimes what good a cocktail party is to the building of a movement or to the achieving of our rights. That in and of itself does not achieve rights. In and of itself, sometimes it placates those who can be the greatest fighters. I was not invited to the White House either of the years during the commemoration of Stonewall. Many people have said that the only reason why that event occurred in the first place was because gay people were cutting off funding from the Democrats, and so President Obama had to do something. And they put together this emergency cocktail party because they think gay people just love to have those things and love to be invited and love to get dressed up and love to have martinis. Declared a wonderful and eloquent and elegant proclamation, but in the end, those words did not give us our rights. And he is the most powerful, the most capable, some people would say most intelligent man in America to get to where he is. And the gay people that were in that room, many of them were just as intelligent and just as deserving of the opportunities that he's had. But because of the legal discrimination, because of the legislation that hasn't been passed, and because the president hasn't been pushing, because he believes that calling on gay leaders to have a drink with him will make everybody equal. I think there's something missing when events like that occur. And I don't care to be invited to those events as long as there's work to be done outside of the White House. If we're not equal in our house, I don't care about an invitation to his house.
Dan Choi, if the law was changed and you were able to return to Iraq or Afghanistan, how would you feel about the war then?
Well, my feelings on the war and my responsibility to speak out against unjust wars and illegal wars and immoral wars, that certainly wouldn't change. But as a soldier, there are certain responsibilities, particularly in war. You put all of the politics of why you're there aside, and you focus on accomplishing the mission in the most moral and the most, I think, effective way so that you can get yourself as well as your soldiers, and your soldiers first, alive back home.
Finally, Dan Choi, how does it feel to speak out so soon after you've just learned that you've been discharged from the military for being gay, for speaking out?
It's certainly painful, the process of getting kicked out, but being able to speak out for something greater than myself, clearly not for my career anymore. There's no greater dignity. There's no greater honor than to be able to do that.
Lieutenant Dan Choi.